lot of things in C++. Coming from the beginning basics, from the scratch, we have done a lot of things. We have understood about variables, we have understood about data types, we have understood about typecasting, we have understood about a lot of concepts today. And in today's class, I am going to continue with this tradition, and I am going to continue with the next concept, and that is going to be conditional statements in C++. So what exactly is conditional statements and why do we use it? So till now, you were actually writing the codes where the code were doing exactly the same thing what exactly you wanted to do, or whatever you have written inside the code, but the program would not be able to take the decision on its own, and for that reason we use conditional statements. So basically, to allow your program to take decisions on its own based upon some conditions, we are calling it as conditional statements. Now there is a whole concept when you start learning a programming language. There is a whole concept called as control flow and looping statements, and this concept comes under that particular part. So there is something called as control flow. There is something called as control flow and looping. Okay. So what happens in this is, this conditional statements comes under control flow statements, where we actually understand how the flow of the execution. Here flow means execution. So basically we are saying talking about execution here. So how the execution flows into your program, we understand about that, and that can be actually controlled with the help of conditional statements in this case, and this comes under conditional or control flow statements. Next comes up looping, where we will understand about various different kinds of repetitive statements or looping statements, and there we will learn about for, we will learn about the while, we will learn about do while, and we will learn about a lot of different things here actually about that. So right now we are not doing looping statements as of now. I was just telling you because this conditional statement actually comes under these two categories, that is control flow and looping. So I just wanted to give a brief introduction to it, and we are going to start initially with conditional statements, that is going to be control flow statements. There are many different types of conditional statements which we are going to talk about, and then we will move on to the looping statements in this case. So let us understand about that. So let us go ahead and continue our conditional statements concept. So here, first of all, we are talking about conditional statements. What are these conditional statements? There are two words in it. First word is conditional and the second word is statement. So what exactly this means? Conditional means, what is a condition, guys? Condition is some expression. Condition is some expression which is gonna be used to take what? Some decision. Okay. Condition is some expression which is gonna take decision into your program, and based on to that decision, program will do the job respectively. So basically what happens here in conditional statements is, we provide mathematical equations or expressions which tells the program what to do in what scenario, and then depending upon that the scenario is executed. Okay, so there are a lot of different conditional statements. So those statements where we write the conditions or the expressions so that we can make decisions are what we call as conditional statements. Basically this is what it means, and this is how we understand about this whole process. Okay, now if we talk about the different types of conditional statements, then there can be different types actually. There are majorly two types. That is, first we have if else, and another one is our switch case. Okay, switch case. So this is gonna be interesting, guys. There are two conditional statements here which we're gonna talk about, and in today's class we are gonna only talk about if else conditional statements, where I'll just explain you how if else conditional works. In the next live session we will talk about switch case statement, but today let us focus on to if else statements. Okay, so let's move on to if else statements and understand what exactly this if else statement means. So we say if else. In English, when you want to take do a multiple different things, what do you take in consideration? If the condition is this, then we will do this, otherwise that statement will happen, or something like that happens. The same exact concept from real life is taken into computer science, and we have taken it as if else conditional statements, where we write if statements and else statements to understand if the scenario is this, then do this, otherwise do that. So here we start by actually writing if. We start by actually writing if, and in this if we give the first condition. This first condition is passed, and based on to that condition a particular job is executed, and once that job is executed, now if that particular statement is actually true, basically here the condition is checked. If the condition is true in this case, then only its body will get executed, body of the particular block of code will be get executed. Now I have taken one word here into consideration called as block of code. What is this block of code? So you see that when I said if, after if I started with the curly braces open, and then I said curly braces close. So curly braces open tells me that this is the start of the program, the start of this particular block. We will call it as if block, and as soon as it starts this, whatever is written inside this if block will get executed, and then it will be done, the job will be done, whatever job is mentioned here in this particular if statement in this case. I hope so that you are able to understand what I am exactly saying. So here, depending upon the condition, the body is executed. What happens if the condition is false? If the condition is false, because here we have nothing given extra, nothing will happen in this case. But if you write an else statement, let me write it more clearly actually. So I'm going to say here, say suppose I have written if this condition is executed, if the condition is true, then this block gets executed. Otherwise, if you want any other thing to happen, in that case you say else, and in the else block you write the remaining part of the code. So basically there are two blocks of code here created. I am using a word called as block of code. Block of code means whenever we are inside the parenthesis of any particular block, like this is what you call as block of code. We say if block, so this part is what you, the above part above the red line is what you call as if block, and the else part will be called as else block. So the logic goes like this, that if the condition here is true, then execute this block or if block. If the condition is not true, that means if the condition is not true, then execute whatever is there inside the else block. We don't give the else condition here, because else only means if not this, then do this, and for that reason we call it as if and else conditional statements, where here we will provide the condition and the body will be given, according to that will get executed. Well, I hope so that you are able to understand what I am trying to say. Now you may ask, what type of condition, what exactly, I am just saying condition, but what will I write here actually? So what exactly I am going to write here? We are going to write here condition. And what is this condition here? Condition is nothing but just an expression, a mathematical expression which will be used to calculate some particular scenario, and then depending upon that scenario do the job. If that expression is met or true, then only execute this block, otherwise you just do whatever is written inside the else block. Now a very small example I would like to just take. Now the very small program I will just gonna write here, the basic and the first program that you would do generally is the finding if the number, finding if the number is even or odd. So basically this is the question. Now if I want to write the code for this, I would start by writing the, now I'm just going to write the required condition, and then according to that we will work. So I'm going to write the logic here. So we'll start with if. Say suppose we have a variable called as int n, and in this n we are going to take the input from the user. So user is going to take the input here, do the input, and let us imagine that in this n we have some random number we don't know. What we are going to do is we are going to take this number, we are going to put this in if else conditional statement. So I'm going to say here if I'm going to write here n, I'm going to say mod 2 is equals to 0. This is a condition which I have created to check if that particular n is even or odd. Basically the idea is checking if n is divisible by 2 or not. If it is divisible by 2, then it is even, right? And if it is not, then it is odd in this case. So this is the example that I've said it for you. Now you must ask, what are these operators here? This operator that you see here, this modulus operator, is gonna give us the remainder for the division between n divided by 2. And this double equals to operator is a comparison operator, which is gonna actually check if when you divide n by 2, its remainder equals to 0 or not. If that is the case, then in that case what will happen is this condition will become true. Now for example, you took the example of n as, let's say, 4. Now if you take the example of n as 4 is divisible by 2, yes, okay. So in that case we can say that it is an even number in this case. And so you see, 4 divided by 2, remainder comes as 0. In that case, this condition is true. And once this condition is true, we can just display out of that hence it is an even number. So in this case, the code could be like this. Code could be like this. Code can be if n mod 2 is equals to 0. In that case, you can say cout and you can just say even. Okay. And else I can just say cout odd. Now you see guys that I have not written anything odd. I can just print it like this. Now you see that I have not written anything in the else part. Why? Because else doesn't require a condition. Else it means that if not that, then do this. So in this case what happens is that it will check if this condition is true. If that condition is true, it will print it as even. Otherwise, you know, it's either heads or tails. It's either even or it is odd. So if we have checked the condition for even, we don't have to check the condition again for odd. And in this case, the else can do the job for us, the rest of the job for us. And here, this is the logic for finding if the number is even or odd. So n is the number inputted by the user. So we know how to do this thing. I hope so that this is very much clear. Now this was only about if and else statement. But when this will work when only either the heads will be there or the tails will be there in this case. But what if there are many different conditions more than just head and tails? I am saying that there are a lot of conditions which cannot be just written in just one if else statements. You need more conditions to be checked. In that case, we have something called as else if statement. Okay, we have something called as else if statement. I mean to say is, first you start by writing the if condition, the first condition as usual. You will check if that condition is true, then that particular body will get executed. Now if I want to check another condition, I'll say else if, and I can now check that particular condition. So my second condition would be written inside else if. Okay, so else if, if you give if with else, now you can write the condition. As I told you, we cannot write any condition with else statement, but when I say else if with else, then we can write a condition and we can write as many conditions as you want. In this case, I can just keep on going and keep on going, writing all the required conditions for endless time. And in this case, what will happen is that we can just keep on going for unlimited number of times. We can check any number of conditions we want to in our program. Well, I hope that this is very much clear to everyone. And you see that we started from if, and then we went to else if, doing the other conditions, then third conditions and so on. And always your last condition is written in else, which means the last condition will be just skipped. Okay, and that all the remaining conditions will be taken into consideration in the else part, and you end with else. Now it's not necessary. People think that if we are writing if statement, we have to write else, or if we are writing else if statement, we have to write else, but it is not necessary, guys. Conditional statements are totally flexible. According to your ease, you use them. So in this case, it is not necessary that if you have written if statement, you have to write else. No. If you have written if, just write if, no problem. You can just leave it as it is, and you don't have to write else every time in this case. If you have not written else, that means it will not do anything if the condition is not true. If the condition becomes true, it will execute the if part, and if the condition is not true, then it will not execute the the if part, but it will not do the need and the thing also in that case. So that is the part of if else conditional statements. I hope so that you have understood this really well. Well, for this live session, I will be just explaining you the logic for this conditional statements only, but in the next live session I am gonna explain you about how you can code this into programming software, and we will just go ahead with the programming part in the next live session. Well, I hope so that you have understood this conditional statements really well, guys. And remember, we have just done only if else and conditional statements, but the next part is gonna be switch cases statements that I'm gonna explain you when you will start doing that. But first we'll complete the programming part of if else statements. Well, that's all for this video, guys. I hope so that I have cleared your doubts and I have made you understand about how conditional statement works and if else statement works. Well, stay tuned for our more live channels like Coders Arcade for more live content, and we can go ahead with that. Later on we will learn about a lot of different things, and we are gonna also do a lot of live sessions. In future, I am planning to do a DSA live session also. So in there, we will learn about data structures and algorithms. So stay tuned for that, and do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel Coders Arcade, and don't forget to press the bell icon as well. And that's all for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. That's all for this live session. This is Ashank David signing off. I will see you guys in the next live session, which will be probably in the next week, Saturday, that next week coming Saturday, and I'll see you guys with that. Thanks for watching. Take care. Happy learning.